Hi, I'm Justin Miller with the Chong Miller Group. At the Chong Miller Group, we help people buy and sell homes. And I produce a monthly market update video for Condos and Townhomes, another one for single-family residences for the Las Vegas Valley every month. This is the August 2022 real estate market update for condos and townhomes in Las Vegas. But I'm going to start this video slightly differently than I normally do. While this video is self-contained, as is the single-family residential update video, I'm going to actually request that you go and watch the single-family video to get the context that exists behind the numbers in this report. That video has a significant overview of some of the macroeconomic conditions that give meaning to the numbers that are being reported for the month of July. Remember, we always are looking at the data from the prior month. So this is the August update, but we're looking at July data. And most of that data is all backward looking. It's sort of what happened in July. Some of that data points us forward in time, such as looking at pending home sales or contracts that were signed but have not yet closed that would then close in the following month. But we're always looking at the data from the month prior. So the August update, we're looking at July. The July data has some challenges to it for a variety of reasons. That does not mean that July was a bad month, but it does mean that if you don't understand the context around which that data was generated, you may be susceptible to being misled. And so I don't want to repeat all of that context here in this video, but I do want to recommend, please go and watch that video so you have some more understanding about what these numbers actually mean. All right. And that video is linked at the very end of this video. So you can watch this first and then you can go back and watch that. And it'll provide, again, the context. If you want, you can watch that one first and then come back to this one. But I've linked that video, the single family residential resale market update for August 2022 at the end of this one. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and dive right into the August numbers. Now, first, I'll cover condos, and then I'll get to townhomes later in this video. Condo sales in the Las Vegas Valley in July of 2022. So first, pricing. The median sale price for condos was $238,000. Now that is down. It came down 2.9% from $245,000 in June. Okay, so that sounds bad. On the other hand, we are actually up 26.1% from July of 2021, from $188,750 at that time. So we've had very high levels of price appreciation in the condo market, and we came down 2.9% in the month of July. So that's not really so much a falling market as it is a little bit of correction in the uptrend. We may have been going up a bit too quick. Now, one other data point on price, we are up 10.7% year to date. So January 1st through the end of July, even with July dropping a little bit, we're up 10.7% from $215,000 where we started the year for condos. So again, that price drop that we saw in July, 2.9%, that's more of a correction on the uptrend than it is anything about moving toward a market in which prices are falling. I'm not seeing that. I'm not anticipating that. Now, the correction can last for 1, 2, 3 months, and then we'll start to see prices escalating again. I would describe this as a stabilization in the pricing in the condo market. And I think that that's the best way to look at it. Prices sometimes can move ahead of where they should be when things are going up really quickly. And again, context in the single family update video will explain more of that to you. All right, what about number of condos sold? 347 condos sold, completed transaction, changed owners in July of 2022. Now that's down. It's down 16% from the 413 that sold in June of 2022. And it's down a significant 33.7% from the 508 condos that sold last July 2021. Now remember, 2021 had the highest volume of sales transactions of any year of existence of history of the Las Vegas Valley. So 2021 creates a hard comparison point, and I've mentioned that issue multiple times over the previous several months. And in fact, I mentioned that issue last year in the forecast video, saying that year-over-year comparisons in 2022 back to 2021 were going to be challenged just because of the strength of 2021. So that number is relatively meaningless, the down 31.7% year over year. The more consequential number is we are down month over month. We are down 16%. What that suggests is that there's a slowing in the sales cycle. Properties are coming into the market and they're sitting on market a little bit longer. Now, in a balanced market, meaning not a buyer's market, not a seller's market, but a balanced market, inventory tends to sit on that market for 5 to 6 months. We're not in a balanced market. We still have a seller's market, but it has slowed from what we've become used to over the prior 2 years, where we were in an extremely critically inventory challenged marketplace, and where consequently people were rushing into transactions and concluding those transactions as quickly as possible to make sure they got into something. So we're actually moving toward a sales cycle that's a little bit slower, still fast, but a little bit slower, and consequently number of sales that closed in this month have fallen. That number, I anticipate in August, should come up slightly, if not August, where we have back to school issues that can seasonally cloud the numbers. Then in September, we'll start to see catching up on sales volume. Because slowing sales doesn't mean that we're going down in sales every month. It means that we've got to see a slowdown taking place across 1 or 2 months, that then everything will be in line to have better sales numbers as we go through time, but properties will sit on market a little bit longer than they had been. So what about inventory? We had, at the end of July, 1,084 condos for sale. Now that's a pretty healthy increase from where we had been with very tight inventory previously. We're actually up 14.9% from the number that we ended June with. And of course, that number had been higher than what we'd seen over the prior 2 years. I will point out that 1,084 actually puts us at about 80% of normal volume. So we're still down we're still down 25% on volume, on inventory sitting in the market from normal, but we're getting closer to that normal level. And so there's more choice when you're looking at condos, there's more choice for you to look at. This number is up, again, a kind of meaningless statistic, but this is up 49.1% from the extremely challenged 727 that we had in July of last year. Remember though, last year, greatest volume and lowest inventory we'd ever seen. So the comparison point to sort of that really unusual market is going to look itself problematic and challenging, but it does not hold a lot of worthwhile information in there. More validly, we're up. Inventory is up 14.9% from last month. What about new into market? So this is interesting. New condos into market, meaning newly listed into the multiple listing service. Seller has signed a listing agreement with a real estate agent and listed their condo for sale. 654. It's actually down. It's down 11.6% from the 740 condos that were newly listed in June. This is up 1.4% from the 645 that were newly listed condos last year in July of 2021. So what this suggests is we had a real spurt of inventory increase with new listings in the June timeframe, and that has started to moderate a little bit, which personally I think is a good thing. I think that some people have become very concerned by watching the news and social media about, well, look at these year-over-year comparisons, or listening to people who are really uninformed about what they're talking, and being scared and therefore rushing into the market. And there are real estate agents out there who love that because they can convince you to list with them. Even if it's not going to be a good listing, they get their name on a sign, and they've got the possibility of making a sale. Be careful. If you want to sell, if you really actually want to sell, if you need to sell, perfectly valid. If you're motivated to sell, not because you think this is the top of the market and things are going to be crashing, but because you have other reasons that cause you to want to sell or need to sell, list your property and get it sold. But if you're just being convinced that you should be afraid because the market's collapsing, and therefore get out now, you're being misled by people. Don't fall into that trap. Okay, and so the inventory, that listings has come down a little bit, I think is actually healthy, because I think it means that some people are taking a little more time, putting in some more consideration as to whether or not they should be listing their property, and that's a good thing. So new listings down 11.6%, up 1.6%. From what was last year. So I will comment, this number, 654 newly listed condos, in the historical context, a longer term time horizon, this number is slightly elevated. Normal context would be about 625 to 645. So we're just slightly above that at 654. So this is good. We're getting new into market at about appropriate levels, and inventory has come up, still below normal, but coming up toward normal. And that means additional choices, which are slowing the sales cycle. This is all healthy activity in the market. Pricing is remaining approximately stable, down only 2.9% on the month, while sales slowed toward a more normal level. Now, there's one other statistic that I've been tracking a lot over the past year, and that is back on market. And back on market are contracts that failed. So buyer seller go into a contract, and that contract fails, and the property comes back onto the market to be sold to another buyer. Back on market is problematic. You don't want properties to come back into the market. But under normal conditions, we're generally looking at something approximately 20% of contracts go back on market. We're now at, for July of 2022, 32.2% of condos coming back into the market, back on market. That is obviously a little bit elevated, but this has actually been trending down. It's a little bit of a choppy trend, but trending down over the past 6 months in the condo market. So there are people out there who are telling you that, wow, the back on market statistics are really elevated and this is indicative of a falling price market. No, actually prices have been going up while back on market had been more elevated. The back on market statistic is improving, and I expect to see it to continue to improve. Why? Because bad appraisals oftentimes send things back into market is prices were going up at rates quicker than what appraisers could accommodate in their pricing models. That was leading to a large series of bad appraisals. As well, when sellers understand the market is moving up quickly on an inspection request for repairs, sometimes sellers become a bit obstinate and refuse to make repairs. If you want my property, you'll take it as it is. Well, as the market stabilizes and sellers realize they are in a competitive market and they need to do things to make sure the buyer stays happy, they're more likely to accommodate the rational, the reasonable repair requests. And so both inspection-based and appraisal-based reasons for contracts to be canceled are mitigating in the current market. And so that's leading to a reduction in back on sales. So that's condos. I'm going to go into townhomes now, but let me make one comment before I do. Please smash the like button, subscribe if you find these videos in any way to be informative and or helpful to you. Also, please feel free to share these videos with family, friends, colleagues who you know who may possibly be thinking about getting into the real estate market, who need to buy, need to sell, thinking about buying or thinking about selling. Share my videos with them so that they have access to some quality, appropriate information that's not just hyped and misleading, but rather from which they can make more informed decisions and be more informed consumers of real estate services and activities. If they find it helpful, they can reach out to me and contact me, and we can talk about whether or not I can actually help them. But share my videos with them. Let them make that choice for themselves. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. And please feel free to leave comments. I like interacting with the comments, whether you're a potential buyer or seller or someone who's actually involved in the real estate industry. Feel free to think about the comment page on these videos as a community space where we can all interact. So, thank you. Now, let's move into the townhome market. Townhomes, a separate category of multifamily housing in the Las Vegas Valley in July. We saw median sale price on townhomes of $320,000. Now, that is down. It's down a little bit more sharply. It's down 7.2% from June's number, $345,000. But like with condos and like with single family housing, we're way up year over year. So the July 2021 number was $282,000. We are up 13.5% from that. And we're up 4.2% year to date. So from January 1st, when prices were $307,000 at the median, we're up to $320,000, or we're up 4.2% year to date. Now, that suggests, and we actually saw this last year and the year prior, townhomes started coming out of the multifamily sales challenges that had initially impacted all multifamily housing types during the pandemic lockdown. You'll remember back in the March, April, May timeframe in 2020, sales of all multifamily housing products, condos and townhomes, had fallen very steeply, and prices had come down very considerably. And that was because living in a multifamily environment, when pools and or tennis courts, gyms, whatever those common features were locked down and you could not participate in them, and you're paying more association fees for those services than you would, let's say, in a single family community. There were people who were fleeing multifamily housing to try to get into the single family housing market, to buy a place with their own yard, to buy a place maybe with their own pool, to buy a place where they could have their own freedom away from issues of being locked down in a higher density environment. So townhomes started recovering from that more quickly than did condos. And what that meant was in 2020, we actually saw townhome volumes increasing and townhome prices increasing at rates higher than what we saw for condos. Through 2021, sales of condos, townhomes, and single-family homes were all at record levels in terms of volume. But we started to see townhome pricing in the second half of 2021 slowing down a little bit relative to condo pricing, because condo pricing was late into that recovery game, if you will, into that recovery session than were townhomes. And so that trend has continued into 2022, where we're seeing price escalation, price appreciation on townhomes at a rate a bit lower than what we're seeing in condos. And so we're seeing this slowdown and correction happening in the townhome space in a way that appears to be a little bit more pronounced. In reality, it's actually very similar. It's just happening either slightly earlier or there's a slight bit of catch up. So anyhow, prices down 7.2% from June through July for the townhome market. Now, what about sold? 241 townhomes sold in the month of July. That's down 23% from the 313 that sold in the month of June. And we're down 30.9% from the 349 that sold in July of last year. So for comparison, remember, we're down slightly more than that, 31.7% on condos year over year. We're down a little bit less than that for month over month. We were down 16% on condos. We're down 23% on volume terms for townhomes. Now, I will comment just to sort of highlight this issue. The number of townhome transactions in any month in Las Vegas is so small that each townhome actually accounts for a significant percentage change. So if we're at 200 townhomes get sold within a month, a movement up or movement down itself would be 0.5% change in volume. If we were at 300 townhomes in a month, every individual townhome contributes to 1/3 of a percentage point in change in that volume. So the numbers, the percentage change numbers on townhomes also will always appear more volatile because of the limited numbers of townhomes that exist and therefore the number of transactions for townhomes. Okay, what about for sale? 695 for sale townhomes. And remember that, just to emphasize what I just said, that means that that's in comparison to 1,084 condos for sale. So every individual condo that's for sale has less than a 0.1% change in the number that we're looking at. With 695 townhomes, that means again the townhome numbers look more volatile than they would if they were simply larger numbers. Not meaning higher or lower, but larger numbers. The changes would be more discrete in terms of the percentage. So 695 for sale townhomes, that is up. It's up 14.1% from the 608 for sale townhomes at the end of June. We are up a pretty impressive 63.1% from where we were last year when we were incredibly inventory constrained, with the lowest level of inventory we'd ever had going back through 2006 in the MLS for townhomes at that time, 426. So we are with number of townhomes available for sale approaching normal. We're still below normal by 10 to 25%, depending on exactly what month we would be looking at. But so we are approaching normal on inventory of townhomes for sale in the Las Vegas market. But we have not fully caught up to normal. Up 14.3% on inventory for townhomes. In comparison, condos were up 14.9%. Okay. What about newly listed into market townhomes? Similar to condos, this is good news. 434 newly listed townhomes came into the market in July. That's down. It's down 14.6% from the 508 newly listed townhomes that came into market in June. So pretty comparable. Slowdown in newly listed product coming into this portion of the multifamily space relative to condos. And we are up 5.1% for newly listed compared to the 413 that we were at last year. Now, this number is, again, like with condos, this newly listed into market is slightly elevated from historical norms. Historical norms would look more like 425. So we're up by about 9 above historical norms for newly listed. But again, I think it's good. I think it's appropriate. We're down from where we were in June for newly listed. And I think that means that sellers are actually being a little bit more sensible in thinking through whether or not they're wanting to sell. You should not be selling or listing your property for sale because you think the market's going to be collapsing and you want to get out at the top. The market's not collapsing. We're not seeing great big price drops. That's just simply not indicative of what's happening actually in the market. That's not what the statistics show. And again, looking forward, I think that August will be completely stabilizing, if not slightly increasing. And then I think that September, October, we'll be seeing actual higher numbers for volume of sales and for pricing in the market. So don't worry that you're losing value on your home or your investment, because that's not the case. That's not what the market's showing. Now, the one other statistic, again, back on market, townhome numbers for back on market, 31.5% of transactions. So slightly better than with condos, which were 32.2%, very kind of meaningless difference there. We actually also saw back on market for single family homes falling. They're still elevated numbers. They're improving, and I think they're continuing to improve based on, again, fewer problems with appraisals and fewer problems with inspections. They're still elevated numbers. So if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, you still really need to pay attention to the issues to make sure that your contracts do not collapse, because a collapsed contract is problematic for both parties to a transaction. So you want to do everything you can to avoid them, but those numbers are actually improving. All right. So at the Chong Miller Group, we help people buy and sell homes. I'm Justin Miller, co-founder and principal with the Chong Miller Group. Please reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to share comments with you. And so leave comments. And please share the video to any family, friends, colleagues that you think might benefit from the content that I provide here. Remember, I'm linking that video here at the end screen, so you can go directly to the August 2022 market update for the single family residential segment of the Las Vegas Valley, where you'll get a lot more context about sort of what's going on in the macro economy and the Las Vegas economy that is maybe driving some of these changes in trend that we've been seeing. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.